I am so thrilled with this panel. There's some history here. When I launched Voice Summit back in 2018, one of the very early keynote speakers I had there is going to be on our stage. Janine Heck, thank you so much, with Comcast. So fun to see these relationships come full circle, and now we are here in Vegas at Brands GPT. Our moderator I'm going to bring up first, T. Hawkins. She's a little bit of a Pied Piper in this industry. She not only knows the technology at a very deep level with regards to AI, LLMs, and generative AI, but she knows the market as well. She can flip back and forth between the two. She's fabulous, great person, and I will just share a little bit of a story. She was in Australia, and for 4 days in a row, her flights were canceled. She landed in Vegas this morning, and here she is to moderate our session. Bring it up and give it up for T. Hawkins.
Thank you.
You're
Hello.
live. Thank you, T.
Thanks, Pete. Hi, everyone. It's so wonderful to be here today. I'm your host and moderator, Tian Hawkins, and we're going to be discussing the intersection of AI and brands. And I'd like to welcome, first of all, Julie and then Janine. Please come up. All right, let's take a seat. So to get started, would you ladies please introduce yourself to the audience? Talk a little bit about your experience in AI and product and innovation, and then a little bit about who you are personally.
Okay, do you want me to start? Yeah. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Julie Towns. I am the VP of Product Marketing at Pinterest. So I cover both the consumer and advertising side of our business. My team's responsible for setting our roadmap, our global go-to-market approach, and all of our product operations. In terms of AI, it's incorporated across our entire product suite, so I'm excited to jump in and share how we're leveraging it at Pinterest. And then a little bit about me and maybe fun fact about both Janine and I is that we're both from Philly. So I'm an East Coaster at heart, but I'm based in Seattle, so West Coast transplant.
Yes, hi everyone, I'm Janine Heck. I have been at Comcast for a long time, 17 years, and if you don't know all about Comcast, please look it up. It's kind of complicated to explain, but it's a cable company, internet company, TV, and I have been working on our entertainment products for my entire time there, and really have grown up in content discovery. So I was kind of the search girl for a while, and then learned about voice recognition, and we launched a voice remote that I'll definitely be talking about. And now I lead our entertainment products team, overseeing all of our set-top box products, our tvOS products, and really all of the platforms behind it, so metadata, search, recommendations, all of that, where we're using AI to power the content discovery experience. And yes, I'm an Eagles fan who's in a lot of pain right now, so if anyone can commiserate, please come see us after.
Oh, I love that. So first of all, always start my panels with an icebreaker. And I want to know a little bit about who was your favorite hero or role model growing up, and what impact did they have on your life?
Well, I had thought about it in terms of, because we talked about this question ahead of time, so I thought about it in terms of growing up as a leader. And my role model at my company is this guy named Rick, who was my boss, maybe 10 years ago. And he gave me a really great opportunity, and he let me shine. And that was really a lesson for me as a leader. Yeah. He knew I had big ambitions and gave me this voice project that was like this little science project at the time. And then once I started to really shine with it, he just helped me get a lot of exposure and gave me a lot of credit, which, I did deserve the credit, but it was amazing to see a leader really sponsor me in that way, and it just propelled my career from there, and so I'm very grateful. And now that I lead a pretty large team, I like to bring that forward and kind of pay it forward to the people on my team.
Great,
love
thanks.
That.
Love
I love this question because it can be really personal. I kind of thought about this in a much more personal way that, when I think about role models and people that have formative influence in your life, my instant thought was my grandmother, who I called Mum, which is a very Philly, a very Philly thing to say. But she was a really powerful force in my life, especially when I was younger. And I have a toddler now, and there's so much research that shows that the kind of neural connections your brain makes when you're really young stick with you through the rest of your life. And it makes sense that my mom had such an impact on me as a person. She was, kind of ahead of her time in terms of being a strong, outspoken, independent woman. And she always taught me to, speak up for myself and, really stand out and not take things for as they are. And so she was always very supportive of me too throughout high school and college when she was still alive. And I have some jewelry from her today. So she's a very fellow Aries Ram like myself. So she's just really important to me, and not on a professional state, but I think I'm partly where I am today because of who she helped make me be. So thanks for letting me answer that.
Thanks for sharing. So I have now a question for the audience. I want to see a raise of hands. Who in here feels like their organization has an advanced strategy or an approach to AI? Any hands? Okay, I love it. Or who in here thinks that their organization is more beginner, intermediate level, or is just at that starting point? Raise your hands. Well, welcome. I'm so excited that we have a good mix of both. And today's panel discussion is designed to look at how AI is not only innovating in organizations through product, design, user experience, and personalization, but to also just dive into some of the use cases. So I hope you gain something out of this, and if we do have time for questions at the end, we may get to you, but if we don't, please feel free to come up and introduce yourselves to the panelists or connect with them on LinkedIn, and I'm sure you'll be able to follow their success. So with that, the first question I wanted to start with is, before generative AI blew up in the last 12 months, both of your organizations have had approach to AI and ML. Could you please share with the audience some of those examples that you might have had a more traditional approach, whether it was ML over the last 5 to 10 years, and kind of give them a little bit of an understanding of the landscape?
Yeah, so I can talk about what we've done at Comcast. And with content discovery, there is really a need for algorithms or AI to power things like search. So in the early days of search, and we all have experienced the painful process of entering letters onto a TV. But it's really important, the relevance of the results that come back. You are really trying to minimize the number of clicks that the user has to do, or they will never use search again. So you really have to have a smart algorithm behind it. Yeah. So from my earliest days at the company, I was working on search and really figuring out how to make the data really clean and have it organized very well so that we knew, if you're about to watch an NFL game, that here's the two teams that are playing, here's what channel it's on, here's a bit more metadata descriptions, et cetera, and make that all searchable. Yeah. That was quite an endeavor just to build out the technical capability behind that. And what we realized probably around 2011 or 12 was that machine learning was really going to help us to accelerate and to get to the accuracy we needed. And around that same time, a little thing called Siri came out, and then Alexa came out, and we said, well, what can we do with voice? And it was pretty amazing to see that voice was really going to solve a lot of problems. So number one, that keyboard entry thing that I mentioned is so painful on the TV. And I knew that because I was working with the designers trying to design a keyboard that's user-friendly, and there's really not a way. So making it a voice search was very, very viable, and we just had to figure out how to do that. And actually, we had a pretty big head start because we were already doing things with text search, which gives you, you have to use natural language understanding even to do a text search. So to then take that leap into voice was actually kind of a natural next step. And the other important thing that I focused on was making sure we're solving a problem, because you have to figure out what problems you're solving. And so, like I said, entering text, so say back then you were searching for American Idol. American Idol, saying it into the microphone is way easier than typing it. But another problem that we actually didn't realize we were solving until we were kind of in trials was channel tune. So it turns out, and this problem's going away with the way that TV's changing, but for a long time, we all had the channels, and channel 350 is ESPN, and it's hard to remember all of your channels. And we realized that just saying ESPN and it tuning to that channel directly was a very powerful capability. And by the way, we could do it in just like a split second. So it was really kind of mind-blowing when users saw this and saw how powerful it was. So that going through that process was how we started to use AI. And then the capabilities just kept getting better. So, you know, we went from a bit of a heuristic model to more machine learning, where we could actually see what did people click on after they searched, and then you start to improve your relevance in an automated way, not just by what you can think of ahead of time in heuristic.
It's a great example. Thank you.
Yeah, very helpful. So at Pinterest, and maybe I'll start if you don't use Pinterest. I'm not sure where the audience is on the spectrum. Hopefully some people use it. Pinterest is like to think of it as a personal media space. It's a place where, you know, our mission is really to help people build a life they love through personalized visual-first content. So we were the first and really only platform to curate through primarily human curation all of the you know, internet's best ideas and best images and match them through visual technology. And that is still to this day extremely unique to us. And so AI has been embedded into the foundation of how we built the product from the beginning. So, you know, a lot of our peer companies are in the social media space and have massive AI teams. I like to think that we hopefully, you know, punch above our weight class in how we're leveraging AI. There's 4 key ways that we've integrated AI into our product space today, and I could probably talk about many of them, but the 4 key ways that we've used it, first and foremost is, you know, Pinterest is a positive corner of the internet. It's a place for inspiration, and so we've leveraged AI to rapidly create models to detect and remove harmful content from the internet, and not only harmful, but in categories that we don't want showing up on Pinterest that might show up on other more divisive platforms. So that's one that's helped us scale, you know, human review, human curation, and even some of the models that we had previously. The second is that it's super important to our mission. As a place for inspiration, you can't feel inspired if you don't feel included and represented in the content that you're seeing. And so we've built AI very uniquely into our product roadmap and suite of inclusive products, which I'd love to share more about, and how we're building diversity more into the content and platform itself. And those are models that we are, you know, patent pending, first of its kind, very unique to Pinterest. And then the third way is really a lot of what you've talked about in search and personalization. So as a platform where everyone who opens their Pinterest, the content that's shared with you on your home feed or even in your search results page is uniquely tuned to every single individual. So no 2 Pinterest accounts look the same, or even the content that's shared. And so AI is deeply embedded into the home feed and the visual similar recommendations we share, but also in how we've improved our search experience. So kind of similar to what you were sharing, AI has been very, and especially, I know we'll get into LLMs, but it's been very helpful in creating kind of guided search experiences. So one of the challenges that people have on Pinterest, or they often come to Pinterest when they don't yet have the words to describe what they're looking for. They have an image in their head of what they want, but they don't know what to put into a search word. So a lot of the search keywords that we get are very ill-formed, they're very high level, and so we've been able to use AI not only to kind of fill in the blanks for users, but also to give insights back to users and give them terms and group categories of images or products back to a pinner that reflects their taste, their style, you know, words that they might not have known if they're looking for home decor, and they've actually now learned that they're really into Japan-y modern chic, which, you know, or people didn't know, like, I actually am looking for a credenza in my dining room, and I didn't know what that was before. So a lot of our AI is helping in that way. And then lastly, and more on in the past year or so, I would say with generative AI, we're starting to embed AI into our advertising business. So not only helping to scale kind of automation and performance, but so much is new in the generative space, and one thing that I'm particularly excited about being a visual first platform is how we can take, you know, some of the relatively boring experience you might have in an online shopping where you're seeing, you know, products on white backgrounds and kind of static imagery when you're searching for specific types of products in traditional search engines. We're building out a technology that will allow us to dynamically populate backgrounds that are uniquely tuned to individuals' interests. So for example, if I am looking for a credenza and my unique preference and style is in more of a Scandinavian modern taste, we may place that credenza in a background in a modern mid-century home compared to, you know, another pinner who might prefer industrial chic, and just making the experience more elevated. And so Gen AI is really helping to up-level the creative experience and ultimately drive performance for advertisers.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing. So who here in the audience is using generative AI tools, whether it be ChatGPT, Midjourney? Raise your hands quickly. Who would consider themselves an advanced user of these tools when you think of prompting and generating images or text? Any takers? Okay, that's cool. That kind of helps. So on to generative AI and LLMs. Obviously, it blew up around about 12 months ago, however, been around for over 3 years. How has this blow up of generative AI changed the landscape in your organizations? And if you could just share, I know you've already dived in a little bit there, Julie, but could you just share, both of you, how has that changed? What is the pressure? What does it look like? How is your organization implementing generative AI?
Yeah, well, so I can add a bit, you know, as you spoke, Julie, like I was realizing some of the other use cases that, you know, we're thinking about, and recommendations are hugely important, and really it's when you turn on the TV, you're kind of just seeing recommendations as your main UI to begin with, just like you are on Pinterest. So our recommendations engines are getting to be more and more sophisticated, and the ability with LLMs to get very deep into the semantics of a show description or a genre, it really is very helpful in just getting the user to exactly what they're looking for. So, you know, if they want to look for somebody who's gone through a divorce and has, you know, recovered really well, they could say that into their voice remote. These are the kind of capabilities that we were going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting to implement a few years ago, but now we can make them available with a much more semantic interface and a conversational interface where you can follow up with, you know, oh, just the ones about women, or, you know, whatever it is that you want to filter on. That has really been very helpful. And I think also we do a lot with media analytics, meaning like understanding what's actually happening in the moment on video. So the way that we showcase this, like for example, would be key plays on Peacock. So our team powers the ability to, when you tune into a game, and there's going to be a really big game on Peacock, the wild card game next weekend. When you tune in, you can catch up on the key plays. And the way that we're doing that is by image recognition, natural language recognition, all on the game itself, and matching it up so that we can isolate the key plays and just help you watch the game or catch up or rewatch the moments that you want to.
That's cool.
And those capabilities, they're very heavy processing to run video through all of the understanding that we're trying to get. And so AI is just really helping us to streamline that, and to also, you know, take some of the AI, you know, you don't need a PhD necessarily to get your language to basically get organized into a lot of good structured data in the pre-processing.
Wow, yeah, that's actually, when I think about that, right, because a lot of us are using it for text and image and the more basic use cases, but to think that you could literally turn on a TV and use a voice prompt to see your favorite parts of a sports game or a TV, you know, show that you missed is a really cool use case. Thanks for sharing.
Like a whole new way of search.
Yeah, it's
I'd
a
never
whole
considered.
new way of search.
It's really interesting. I think one of the challenges actually with both, you know, Gen AI and LLM technology is that there's so many use cases.
Yeah.
Like I've sat in product meetings where we're like, okay, which ones are we going to prioritize? Because there's so many. And so I'll give an example, kind of a back end example and maybe a front end example. So On the back end, and engineering teams have really leveraged our LLM technology to simplify data labeling, which doesn't sound that exciting, but in practice, it's really meaningful for the business. So for example, previously we would have both manual models as well as human review or human labeling to write titles on individual pins that are uploaded by both brands as well as pinners for distribution in our system, as well as distribution on offline platforms or off-site platforms like Google. Yeah. Google SEM is a huge traffic driver to Pinterest and one of the meaningful engagement drivers. And so just having LLMs do automated titling and data processing has helped to not only drive engagement, but also improve our content distribution system. So accurately identifying specific items within a pin and coming up with the language for that almost more impressively than what humans can do when we do human review. So it's like a pretty tactical example, but it's been majorly helpful for the business in terms of our back end. On the front end, very similar to kind of search and how we're using it to make our personalization and recommendations more unique to individual pinners. We've started introducing more personalized modules into the product. So if you open up Pinterest, the first thing you'll land on is your home feed, which is just a scroll of personalized images to you. It could be things that you were previously searching for or saving to your boards, or things we might think that you're interested in. And so now with LLMs, we have automated modules that are unique to each pinner on topics that we think might be interesting to them. So for example, if Janine and I are both interested in like chunky knit sweaters for winter 2024, very specific, we have automation now that will introduce those modules to pinners' feeds where they're relevant, label them, like come up with that title, and then actually populate the unique pins that show up in each module, and mine will look different from Janine's. Even though the content type is similar, they might be labeled differently to reflect what we might be interested in and to align with our previous style. So it's allowing us to do things to kind of take personalization to a much different level than we've seen previously.
Wow, see, that's the back-end power of large language models and how it's affecting business, right, which is super cool. I mean, just the vast amounts of data that your company must process every single day. I can only imagine how many images, and to have those tagged and auto-labeled is phenomenal. And then to be able to serve that up to, if I'm into kittens or puppies or hats or whatever. I love my hats. Selfish plug, always in a hat. Then that's phenomenal. So my next question, I'm going to individualize a little bit. Wanted to talk to you a little bit about Comcast's future vision for entertainment and AI, and if you could share with the audience a little bit about that roadmap.
Yeah, sure. So we talk about our entertainment roadmap as the Entertainment OS, and we're really trying to build the products that are at the heart of your home. And so, we have this very ambitious idea that your TV can be the place where you convene with your family, where you connect to the outside world. And, we know it has been that in the past, but we really want to continue to expand on that and what that means. So you come to this place to be entertained, and, we all have a relationship with our TVs and our remotes. But we are looking to expand that relationship with other content types, so going into fitness and gaming. And we are really also always running very quickly to keep up with all the new content choices you have. And so the way we think about our mission is it's all in one place and it's easy. Yeah. And that's very simple, but to get all of the content that you want to watch flowing into the experience is a very complicated process, and certainly AI is going to make that easier. And then to make it simple is our goal. And you have to think about differentiation, and so finding ways where you get to your content really quickly. And so in our current product that we've just launched, the Zumo Streambox, when you turn it on, you will actually have live TV playing in a tile, but it has a very OTT forward or over the top feeling to it, where you can see all of your apps as well, and you can see all of the other choices you have, but you are getting to content very quickly because we do know that that's really important for it to be easy and streamlined.
Yeah, thank you. It's really great. So my next question, Julie, you've kind of jumped in and out of the answer, and we didn't have a chance to meet beforehand, but could you maybe dive a little bit deeper into the use case of how AI is enhancing your customer experience or your user experience for your pinners, and what that future roadmap looks like?
Yeah, so I talked a bit about personalization. That's a really key, user-centric way that we're innovating. One thing I haven't spoken a lot about yet today is how we're leveraging AI to build more inclusive products and really putting pinners at the center of that. So, I mentioned inclusivity is extremely important to our mission and how the product works itself. And since 2018, we've been kind of pioneers in leveraging AI to be more human-centric and kind of taking a more thoughtful approach. And so one of our first innovations was introducing skin tone ranges, and then after that, hair pattern filters. And so one of the learnings that we've heard from our pinners themselves is that, especially for minority groups, having to put in qualifiers in search immediately discounts them feeling represented and included in the content. So if you're looking for hair or makeup styles for your wedding and you are Black, having to put that qualifier in every single time really just deteriorated their feeling and connectivity to the product. And so we, I know AI existed that could identify skin tone, hair patterns in images at more granular levels. And so we've really made, we have a whole team and roadmap dedicated to building inclusive product. Other platforms have started to introduce them, which we're really proud of because we want the whole internet to be better. And so we've made some of that more public as well. So we started with skin tone ranges. We moved to hair patterns and not only identifying the difference between like straight and curly hair, but also textured and protective hair, which is extremely difficult to find content that exists for those more niche hairstyles. And then this past year, we introduced a new body type technology where we can identify body size, shape, and form in a multitude of images. And we've done two things with that. One, we've started to make the content that pinners see, regardless of their personal preferences, more diverse by default, so that when you open the app and you open your home feed, especially in categories around fashion, beauty, and weddings, that you're going to start to see more diverse content based on that technology. And we're now also starting to leverage it in search, so people can give us, information about what they might feel comfortable in or what matches what looks like them. And the other key learning that we found is that, AI models are only as good as the content that you train it on, and so AI, can be inherently biased if you're training on the content that already exists on the platform. And one of the challenges that we ran into is that while the technology exists because we built it, the content doesn't. And so it's actually pretty limited in terms of the volume of content that we can serve up in these specific cases or categories. And so that's something we very much are passionate about in trying to change and have commissioned and developed our own content. But it's also kind of a call to action for anyone in the creative and media space to really think about how you're training the AI models that you're building and what you're putting in them. Because in the worst case scenario, I think it does have the risk of taking the polarization that we might be experiencing now and making it even worse if we're not creating principles and being purposeful in our product development at the onset for how we're building these new capabilities.
Yeah, I would second that. As somebody who specializes in the AI data space, I've been fortunate enough to be on the forefront working with the Googles and Metas and all of the rest of it, but the diversity in data is only something that's become quite important to organizations in the last couple of years, and there's definitely a backlog. Yeah. And if you just think about language alone, there's 7,500 languages in the world, and I haven't seen a language model that can do more than a couple of hundred languages yet, so we've got a long way to go. And then when you think about image, right, there's a stereotype, whether it be from modeling agencies through to that's just taking in consideration size, let alone diversity in age and different demographics. So it's amazing to hear that you're focusing on that.
Yeah, if I can jump in about language, clearly when you're building a voice interface, you need to think about language. And I just remember when we first started doing Spanish language voice, it took us probably a year and a half to get a good, relevant, accurate model working for Spanish language to be able to turn that on in our UI. And now we are just moving so quickly to add new languages that, and we do know that the LLM capability and generative AI is really going to get us to, that's not a barrier at all to add a language. We'll certainly be able to have hundreds of languages very soon.
Amazing.
So it's been amazing, and it is kind of mind-blowing. Like, I don't think I would have believed it if you told me that 5 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I remember the first data set request we had was maximum 10 languages, 6 years ago. I mean, there's bigger, but it was like 10 at a time, and then it was, another 10 the following year, another 10 the year after that. So
yeah, and you would think that you need a lot of examples and data to train with, and you're getting to the point where you don't, which is just kind of unbelievable.
Yeah. So the next question is around AI and the advancements around products. So could you both share examples how you see AI advancing product creation and innovation? Do you have any examples that you could share with the audience?
Yeah, I mean, I shared some. AI is very much embedded into our inclusive product roadmap. Some maybe additional things that we're working on are in shopping. So shopping is another key area of focus for Pinterest. One of the things we found recently is that more than half of pinners who are on Pinterest say they are there to shop. It's usually a platform that people come to very early in their consideration journey when they don't have the words yet, they don't understand maybe what exactly they're looking for, even the brands. And so that's an opportunity we have to not only build more relevant content, but kind of diversify the index of products that we acquire and then distribute on the platform. And so one of the unique ways that we're starting to use AI in the content itself is creating more personalized shopping modules. So creating kind of shop the look or shop the look for less, and also generating different types of collages or recommendations based on someone's unique style. So if they're looking for, and we can kind of tell if they're in a commercial mindset based on their behaviors and patterns of searching and saving and the types of content that they're engaging with, we can serve up recommendations around content that and styles or vibes or aesthetics that might fit what they're looking for, and ideally make all of that content shoppable. So that's another really key part of our strategy, and AI has helped us advance that much faster than where we were previously in kind of manually labeling and acquiring product catalogs and then having to put our recommendations in place that are not always exactly what people are looking for. I mean, when we talk about personalization, it's like, yes, everyone's trying to do that, but it's really cool to see the before and after, and how AI has enabled, you open the app and you're like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I was looking for. Like, how did it know? Like, that's, AI has been very helpful in that front.
Thank you.
I would say an area that I haven't talked about yet would be like menu curation. For us, we have just hundreds of different corners of the product that you can get to by navigating our menus. And really, it wasn't very long ago that they were all populated by a human editor who was behind the scenes, choosing which content would show up. And we are really liberating our editors now to do more meaningful work around what's really trending and what we need to stay ahead of that the algorithms don't know yet, rather than building out the whole thing. So it's really enabled us to grow the amount of content we can put in front of our customers, as well as make it more relevant and personalized to their interests.
Thank you. I'm going to throw a little bit of another question in just internally. Are your teams or your product teams using AI internally to help with their innovative ideas? If so, could you share? If not, happy to move on, because I didn't put this in the list.
I think that we're all really excited about the ability for AI to write code.
Yeah.
There's certainly times where you are, implementing an app on 2 different versions of our OS, and you just have to deal with versioning sometimes when you have a lot of hardware out there. So to be able to deploy something once and have it rewrite and reconfigure the code so that it can go on a different stack is really, really helpful, and something that we're tinkering with right now to be able to get into our product.
Thank you.
I mean, our engineering teams are certainly using it. I talked through the data labeling example. That's helped them to just scale and focus on harder problems. On the product side, we have teams that are both innovating, like creating new use cases for AI. So generative AI is a big one, and I think it's still there's still so much to explore on how we might apply it, and that's a lot of where the teams are spending their time now. So I talked through how we are thinking about generative AI more on the advertising and creative side, and really understanding how different creative elements can drive better performance for brands who are trying to, ultimately their goal is to drive conversions and sale of their products. And so that's been an advancement that the product teams have very quickly, focused on and A/B tested, what are the results from the generative AI creative versus kind of standard that we see from brands. In terms of efficiency, I think I've seen it mostly on the engineering side and just kind of scaling the content.
Great.
discovery.
I think that's going to be huge over the next even 12 months. I think a lot more engineering teams are going to be implementing, code generators to help. So my next question, you've touched on a little bit around diversity and how AI can be used to serve up the right products for diverse audiences. But I was just wondering if we could take a moment to break that down a little bit further. Maybe we can start with Comcast and then move across. How do you really see AI reaching diverse audiences? And again, Julie, you've touched on this, but I would love to take a moment to focus on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, one area that we are really passionate about is accessibility, and, making sure that TV can be enjoyed by everyone in the household. And so we've had this focus for a long time, and voice has certainly gotten us very far with helping people who are visually impaired or have mobility issues. And the ability to kind of take that to another level with AI is just phenomenal. To think about, so we have this capability called descriptive video service. So if you're a user who cannot see the screen, you can turn on this capability and it will read through what's happening. There's a man walking down the street, he's carrying a briefcase, and it describes everything that's on screen for you. That capability has been a bit limited in terms of just how much content can be covered. Mm-hmm. But as we have automation and LLMs to do that very accurately, we can actually start to lean on descriptive video services in a much more scalable way so that it can cover all content, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I think so I shared a bit about our mission and kind of our diversity and inclusion products. I think one thing that's been interesting in our learning as we've built those is really the human element that remains important when you're building out and considering diversity in AI. So the models will be built and based on the content that you train it on. But one of the learnings, especially when you're working with DE&I groups, is actually to include experts and real people as you're developing the products.
Mm-hmm. So important.
So, for example, like when we were building out our body type technology and had to train the models on dissecting different components of an image and cataloging body type, size, and shape, what we learned when we were reviewing those results with D&I consultants and industry experts and influencers and creators in this space is that when we were showing the results and kind of organizing them, that we didn't want to use LLMs to describe the content because what might feel petite to one person is not to another, and it's a really sensitive area. And so what we learned is that being a visual first platform, and no tech told us this, humans told us this, that the best way to represent body types is through images of real women's bodies. And so we created our own because they didn't exist. But I think that balance, when you're thinking about how to create human-centric and diversity in AI, is you have to mix it. The tech alone cannot solve the problem. You have to keep that human element in the product development process.
Oh, I love it. Thanks for sharing. So I want to spend a little bit of time now on risks. I think that it's something that we all need to be aware of. We all need to spend time talking about not just the great, but what are some of the things that can happen when this goes wrong. So the first question I have is, what have been some of the challenges integrating AI into your platforms, and how have you maybe overcome that?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I will say, I think the challenge is like, how do you know if you got it right?
Yeah.
I think, so I always go back to accuracy. It's really a very complex thing to say, did you accurately answer my request? And so you have to, as a product person, be able to define that accuracy. And there's definitely going to be some nuances to it, and I think Julie's covered it really nicely in terms of, you know, you don't want to offend people, you don't want to make assumptions about them, and you know, there are some areas that you just really don't want to get into with your product. So keeping it safe is a very good area, which I think you've covered very well. But the notion of getting it wrong, you know, if you just kind of split it into false negatives and false positives, I think the false positives are definitely the most risky area, because you, as the AI engine, think that you just nailed it. And so you're kind of like patting yourself on the back. I just gave them an answer. Mm-hmm. But you have to look for clues after the fact. Like, did they actually, in our case, it's did they watch the thing that I returned to them? And did I get it right? And so you have to figure out how to measure the actual accuracy, or else you won't find false positives. Yeah. False negatives kind of pop up out of the data pretty nicely, so that's kind of less risky. But I do think that the false positives, where you're kind of like high-fiving, like we're just crushing it, and you don't actually know that you got it wrong a whole bunch of times and possibly disappointed your user.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, we're at time, so I got the old off stage. Cut it down. Yeah, Julie, please just finish that.
I can answer quickly. So, you know, Pinterest is in the social media space, and I think, you know, social companies that have intended to create connection have really done the opposite recently. And Gen Z is a growing audience on Pinterest. It's an audience that we care deeply about their emotional well-being, and I think done wrong, like big risks of AI are moving the mental health crisis that we have in the wrong direction. And so Pinterest really cares about this. We partnered with the Digital Wellness Lab at the Boston Children's Hospital this past year to create an inspired internet pledge. We were the first co-signer, but we've invited all of our peer set companies to really take a pledge that basically says that you will not only understand what drives emotional well-being outcomes on your platform, so things that don't just tune for longer view time, but tune for, you know, real action or kind of explicit interaction and positive content, but also, you know, understand it and then tune for that. So as you're building products, kind of measure yourself against it. And so that's something that, a principle that we've taken on, but I think is really important that we all think about in this space, because if we don't, it could go in the wrong direction pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, everybody, please help me by giving a round of applause to both Julie and Janine. Connect with them on LinkedIn. Thank you, ladies. And with that, I will hand the mic back to Pete. Thank you.